Hey guys, I'm Props, and today I'm going to show you how I made a small castle diorama using some support lattices from 3D prints and some failed 3D printed pieces. The first thing you're going to want is a round circular base. I wanted to make mine around a 20mm scale, so I made sure to scale everything accordingly. And then I used a bunch of failed prints and then the support lattices and stuff from that. I went through and picked out the best looking ones. These are from my more rectangular prints, just so I can get the rectangular look of the towers and stuff. I did trim a few of the pieces to get them to a shape that I liked, and then I did go through and try to arrange the pieces in a good castle-like formation. I used some parts from one of my laser pistols to make the outer walls. These are just the supports that held up the main body, and I tried to rip those off in a good piece to get the outer walls and kind of the Terrence pieces, and then I just used a bunch of random blocky shapes to make the castle of the interior. After getting everything in a close approximation of what I wanted the final product to look like, I went through and hot glued everything together, just going nice and slow to get everything to adhere well and to get everything in kind of the position that I wanted. I did use a picture that I printed out of the earlier assembled product just to know where most of the stuff goes. I did end up changing some spots that I didn't like, and then just taking out some pieces that I didn't feel added anything to it. So you can always go through and change up what your final product looks like. After gluing all the main large bodies together, I went through and glued a bunch of these smaller scraps on just to give it the illusion that parts of the castle had fallen off and broken on the ground, like a battle had happened, which is the look that I'm going for with this whole wrecked castle thingy. And I just used a little dab of hot glue on all of the parts to secure them, and then some super glue on some of the even smaller parts just to get them to stick to the metal base, since sometimes hot glue doesn't like sticking to metal if there's not enough of it on it. I went through and gave everything a nice brown coat, and then went through and dry brushed on some various shades of green over everything just to give it a nice kind of viney, overgrown look. And since I don't have any flocking, I just used this to give it some texture over some areas as well. To give a little bit more texture in some areas, I went through and mixed some green paint and some spackling, and then went through and dabbed that onto a few areas just to build up a nice little texture around some areas, especially the base and in some of the cracks and crevices, kind of like a black wash but with some texture. After that had dried, I went through and mixed up some water with some black paint, just going very light on the black paint, and then I went through and brushed that over everything to give it a black wash. And then I went through with a rag and some paper towels to go through and collect most of that black paint, just leaving it in the recesses to give it kind of a worn and shadowed look. Yeah, overall I'm really pleased with how this turned out. It makes a nice little diorama, and I think it looks pretty much like a worn and battle-torn castle. I really like how the support lattice kind of looks like tiles on the roofs, so that's an unintentional bonus. If any of you guys try to make this or anything, be sure to tag me on Instagram. It's just my YouTube username on there. So I'd totally love to see if you guys ever try to make something like this. Be sure to check out my Patreon. My Patreon, Matthew, actually pays for all my black paint, so anytime you see me use that, just thank Matthew. If you guys don't mind liking and subscribing, please do. Let me know what builds and stuff you guys want to make, and I'll get making them. I'm working on a few pretty big projects right now, so I might not get to those immediately, but I'll certainly try and get making them. Happy crafting, and see you guys next vid. Bye.